unemployment. These have the October numbers. The November numbers have since come out. I think it was yesterday. Not significantly different. 1.8, 2.7. Connecticut is still 3, and the U.S. is 4.3. The issue with having unemployment so low is that we're not at the natural rate of unemployment, because typically you want to be around 4 to 5%, and that allows for the unemployment for people who are changing jobs seasonally or frictionally. Given where we are, we don't have the workforce to support additional opportunities. So there's economic output that we are missing, and that's across the U.S., and that's just like a fundamental economic development principle. So that's one of the things that we would like to see. I mean, it sounds odd. We'd like unemployment to go up, but it is necessary for us to increase the labor pool and get more people into the right jobs.
Barbara, I don't want to interrupt your presentation.
No, you can.
Would you like us, if we have questions while we go, or would
Absolutely.
you prefer to take them at the end?
I'm flexible.
So my question would be, so what do you think the reason we have so many unfilled jobs is?
We don't have enough people in the labor force because our median age is older than lots of places. That's primarily where that issue is. We also have a skills mismatch, and that's something that Workforce Alliance is working on. We're trying to fill those positions like in healthcare where you need a certificate or a degree. The same with manufacturing. We're having a horrible time getting people to work in manufacturing. And that's where that's sort of bubbling up from.
Thanks.
Sure.
Barbara, I know you you indicate that the largest demand is in healthcare. I noticed here in town, in talking to some of the businesses, particularly the food services, that as a matter of fact, one of our restaurants opens not on a consistent basis. In asking them why, they indicated that they can't find the people that they need, and I'm just curious as to.
That is also still an issue. It's not at the same level as healthcare and manufacturing, but finding people to work in restaurants and hotels, it's very difficult. This is a population issue. We're not growing our population, so we can't bring more people in. And we found in restaurants throughout the region, people are changing whether they're going to be open for both lunch and dinner, or selecting which days. In some of the downtown areas, they're sort of coordinating between the restaurants. So, okay, if you're going to be open for lunch on Monday, I'll be closed, so that they're not paying for all that staff when they don't have enough customers to justify it. So that is not unique to this area. Next slide, please.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Yes.
How does that compare nationwide?
It's pretty consistent. Unemployment's a little higher at the national level, but it's not enough to make a significant difference. There are a lot of jobs open. Our next biggest issue is the housing crisis. It's a matter of both insufficient supply, and what we have is very expensive. Since 2019, the median home sales price has gone up 74%. And as I showed you with median income, it is nowhere near as high as that. So really, another reason why we can't get workers is we don't have any place for them to live. And if you're looking at a job in food and beverage, those are not the highest paying jobs, so it makes it even harder to get housing. So another factor that is actually in the mix. The part of the solution to that is the South Central Regional Council of Government has a housing working committee, and they've been working on this for about 5 years. They've just published a draft document working with a consultant, and that is currently under review by the chief elected officials of the COG. Essentially, it's noticing, one, that we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough of the middle tier housing, where you're talking about not single family homes but not dense apartment buildings. So you're talking about 2 to 4 unit places. That's something we could really use. But at this point, we are so short on housing that anybody who wants to build should be encouraged to do so. We have, there's an idea that you're gonna spend 30% of your net income on housing, including utilities and those kinds of things. Because of the way the market currently is, you could have someone who's making far higher than that, but could not find a home in that bracket. So they had to buy to a lower, or rent to a lower price. Then you have the people who have a lower income and are spending well over 30% because they can't find a house in their income range. So until we start getting more houses on the market, we're not gonna be able to sort of balance those demands. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges we have. Next slide, please. In terms of our key sectors, they have not changed. We are very excited about the new neuroscience tower going to be opening in 2027. And we're also looking at the Connecticut Proton Center in Wallingford for cancer care. We will be one of 49 in the country, so that is a very big coup for us. In terms of higher education, we're still seeing slow growth in some of the private colleges, with the exception of University of New Haven. Albertus is down 9% since 2019. The state colleges and universities are still down from 2018, but they are better than they were last year. So that's going to be something that's going to be a slow roll to get better at. And the point that's really important about Albertus, Southern, and Gateway is those students tend to stay in Connecticut, so they're our workforce. And so the more we can get people either in degree programs or certificate programs, the more prepared our workforce is going to be.
And Barbara, is this related to population growth, or is there some other factor that's impacting on this,
I think
the decline?
And we're also seeing this in Workforce Alliance. Because there's low unemployment, people keep being able to switch jobs. So they don't necessarily want to take time off to go get a certificate or participate in a program, even though it might mean a higher wage moving forward. It's just not there. I think once people got out of the sort of path of getting certificates and degrees with the pandemic, they haven't really gone back.
So just to stay with that for a second, I seem to hear an awful lot about people saying that it's more worthwhile for them to go into trades as opposed to spend the money on getting a high-end education, perhaps Albertus or one of the other universities in the area. Is that one of the factors that's impacting this as well?
I think it could be. The odd thing is University of New Haven is fairly expensive, so it's odd, but I think their program is expanding. They are probably one of the few universities that offers esports, and that's something that's very attractive. They also have the Henry Lee Forensic Institute. So I think they're sort of a special niche, but the ones that really have local students, we're not doing great in terms of building up that population. But to your point about the trades, we absolutely need people in the trades.
Right.
If anybody has had to call to get someone for an electrician or a plumber, there's a long wait. It's very expensive, so they're going to make a good living once they've gone through their apprenticeship. So I think that's another very viable career path within this region.
Sure.
Barbara, I'm sorry,
And
please.
then just a follow-up question, the Adams Neurosciences Center, where is that located?
That's at the St. Raphael's campus of Yale.
In New Haven,
Mhm.
okay. And how will that facility be built? Are there sufficient workers, on this topic of trade?
There is concern about that. I think there's 180 beds, but I'm not positive. They need the beds as well. So it's going to be a struggle. I think hospitals tend to do a little bit better in attracting talent because their benefit packages are so much higher. But it's not going to be like a slam dunk. And that is something that Workforce Alliance is working on. We also have a couple of the universities are working directly with the hospitals. I think it even includes Fairfield University to try and get more people through the system so that we can have more registered nurses. People are thinking about it creatively. It's just a slow process.
But how about the actual construction? How is that going to occur? Where are those workers coming from?
They tend to be local workers. They just had their topping off ceremony, which doesn't, we're still looking at 2027, but as far as I've heard, they haven't had any issues. A lot of building that's done in New Haven goes through programs in City Hall. They have a small contractor program. They have a bunch of different ways of connecting businesses with resources. So I have not heard that there's been any delay on this project because of insufficient workforce.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be a bigger issue when it opens.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question, is how do we put, when you read the Home Builders Association or something, they're gonna talk about the input to the economics of the area and then the persistency that follows after the construction of a home. How do we sort of get our arms around what $838 million is after it's built? Steve's point is great, but also that subsequent outflow and how do we sort of understand what those kinds of things do to an economy? Is there anybody that's sort of studying that in our region to say 803 million transfers to 6 billion over 3 years in the economy, that kind of thing?
I don't know anybody who's doing that right now, but I can check because
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing. If you're paying that money as a hospital into the community, you're going to want to show what your economic impact is. So let me see if I can find that out.
Or how do we support that? In other words, we're a bordering area. St. Rafe's is only 2.5, I think, or 3 miles.
Right.
So how do we support them? Yeah.
And honestly, that $838 million price tag is about 2 years old. So let's roll the tote board on that one.
I've heard it's the largest investment in neuroscience in the world.
Interesting.
So we're gonna have
Interesting.
I'm excited because I'm a sufferer of family strokes, so
Yeah, no,
it may be my place.
yeah.
And
I mean, I look at it and I'm like, we've got medical tourism opportunities here.
Yeah, right.
And not to wish ill
I knew
on
Mr.
anyone.
By the way, I knew Mr. Adams, but okay.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Manufacturing, we're still seeing the issue with insufficient workforce. Trying to get people through the programs at Workforce Alliance. I don't know if you guys know Jamie Scott.
Yep.
He's set up his own apprenticeship program in his business as a way to try and draw people in. He says that this is the worst time he has ever had hiring people.
finding people.
And that's where he is devoting most of his time. And he didn't look happy about that. But that's a common theme through manufacturing.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, you're fine.
And so what does that worker look like?
Yeah.
It really, at this point, people who go through, let's say, the 8-week Skill Up for Manufacturing program, that is the most basic skills that you have. If you can get through that program, the belief is that through on-the-job training, they can get you where you need to be. You have to be a good person who wants to work.
Yeah.
With the ability to get through that initial certification. They're not looking for people who can read blueprints and all of that kind of detail. It really is an entry-level position.
And someone who lives within what sort of proximity of the work
What work's
location.
being done.
Yeah. Bioscience, we continue to do well there. I'm just going to throw this out because there's a lot of things that are in flux in terms of funding from the national level. In terms of the SEDS, we have decided that unless something is finalized, we are not going to really address it because there are just too many variables. As you can see, we're getting, well over $500 million from the National Institute of Health. If you take things at face value and, it's going away, that's a huge hit to our economy. it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen fast. Maybe there's a reduction. We're not sure, but that's not something we're going to spend a lot of time thinking about because it's shaking the magic 8 ball and saying what's going to happen next. We continue to lead the regions in terms of biotech companies, and I believe you had Cure move in.
Yes.
That-
And
And-
research.
Okay, and how many employees do they have?
Off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Okay,
And
It-
because they're set up also to take in, they set up space so folks can come in.
Oh,
So I'm not
okay.
sure if it's a fluctuating number or not.
okay. I had seen that was something that had happened in the last year, and I thought it was great. In terms of arts, culture, and tourism, the hotels are definitely performing better. Occupancy's up, average daily rate is up, and the revenue produced per available room is also up. We're still not quite at pre-pandemic levels because of the business traveler, but it's definitely getting better. The profitability issue is not as clear, because their RevPAR may be up 3.4%, but what are the costs? And that's not information that people readily share. So we're still watching that sector very carefully.
Is there any indication as to the growth from a building standpoint, in terms of new?
The only hotel that I know is coming online is the Hampton Inn in North Haven by the Cinemark. The Village Suites on Long Wharf, they're no longer going to be a long-term stay hotel. They're going to convert to apartments. And we may hear more about that in some of the older properties, but it's not definite. I think if we can demonstrate that we still have that demand, particularly for the longer stay, that is something that could help us. We also need places closer to the shore. We have these wonderful resources, but we have one waterfront property in Madison. So that's a little tough to get people to come and have them you have to get in your car to drive to the beach if that's what you want to do. So there's a gap there as well.
I don't see that changing anytime soon, though.
No,
Yeah,
not.
that's been instilled for
Yeah, I had some hope
centuries.
that maybe something might happen in West Haven, but they've taken the Debonair, that's going into housing. The Savin Rock Conference Center is going to be a restaurant. So, yeah, that was my best hope. And
Yeah.
they're going to do something different there.
Yes.
In terms of entrepreneurship, prior to the pandemic, we were seeing about 4,000 new businesses per year. We continue to be way above that. And I will say, once again, you guys are amazingly consistent. You added one. So there's not many places that are this consistent. The next slide, please. So these are some of the things that have happened in the region since I last spoke to you. One of the things that's really sometimes gets overlooked for the contributions that the colleges and university make, because they're not paying direct taxes, they're doing the pilot, is that they do make a lot of capital investment in the region. And certainly Quinnipiac opened couple new buildings in the last 2 years. UNH just bought the parcel that was the old railroad salvage across the street from the university, and Yale has multiple projects underway. So I think, they truly are embedded within the region. The other big piece I would say are the changes at Tweed. Had a conversation with the community outreach person there yesterday. They are looking at 1.3 million passengers over the next 12 months. I can tell you, I live 1.5 miles off the end of the runway. So I can tell you that they need the new terminal and they need more parking, but they're doing a really good job with what they have. And even as close as I live to the airport, it's not disruptive to me. So I think there are some people who are very close that it is very disruptive, but my neighbors and I are fine. Like, generally, if I really notice a plane, it's a private plane. It's not Avello, it's not Breeze. it's somebody private. So, that's a great thing, because that's one of the places that we're getting, interest from, is as new destinations come online, those destinations are super excited about the new places they're gonna travel. So they send writers who come and they visit the region and they talk about us. So there's free, free publicity, earned media that we don't have to pay for. And in the last year, between the airlines and pizza, last year was the year of the pizza as
Yep.
far as I'm concerned, we have seen incredible interest in the region. I don't have this on the slide, but the state's website visits have dropped 33% in the last year.
Wow.
Ours have gone up 86%
Okay.
at Visit New Haven. And granted, scale-wise, it's not that impressive, but in terms of knowing the impact that media is having on driving people here, that means something to us.
I heard something this week, is there's Airbnbs now that will offer a pizza package.
Yes, they do. They do. I think
As
there
you
are
stay
two.
there, I don't know exactly how that works, but, whether I get vouchers or whatever, but it's amazing what the pizza's doing.
Yep, and February 9th is National Pizza Day, but it falls on a Sunday. And they're doing something up in Hartford, but I don't know exactly what. And I want to kidnap them and bring them down here. But I don't get to do that. The next slide, please. So what's up in 2025? It's the long legislative session. So basically, most of what we're going to do is focus on what's going on up there and how they're addressing some of the issues that we're facing. We know there's no quick solution to our energy issues, our workforce issues, our housing issues. But we need to make sure that anything that comes out of there, it makes sense for us as a region. And Rex will testify on any issue that is deemed not beneficial for the region. If it's good for one, not for the other town, then we'll see what happens. But as a general rule, we will advocate for the towns with the legislature.
Did it just open up Monday? Was it Monday? The session, or it
I-
was this week, right?
Yeah, I think it was this week.
Any takeaways yet? I've been busy and I haven't.
Well, the only thing I know about is on the tourism side.
Yeah.
There are rumors that they want to cut the $1 million that goes to the Connecticut Convention and Visitors Bureau. It would basically eliminate that entire organization. There's definitely something there. They're funded as 4.4 million. At other times, when Governor Malloy came in, we were at 12. So it's significant, which partially explains why their web traffic has dropped 33%. We're gonna have to see how that rolls.
I only caught a headline rolling across the bottom of the screen, but it's said Lamont says we need to make Connecticut affordable. So I don't know if he was referring to energy, all aspects. I think he was referring to making our state affordable, getting inflows into our state.
I think it's that you need some backup on that.
Yeah.
Yes, we would all like it to be more affordable, but that's not something that's quick. Enough said.
Yeah.
We're gonna go with that. One of the other pieces that we're doing relative to the SEDS is our annual business survey. What we've seen so far is that people are losing track of the importance of having a business resiliency plan or a work interruption plan. We're also seeing that what ranked very high during the pandemic, which was equitable access to healthcare, is becoming less and less important. Supply chain disruptions are still there, access to capital. Cybersecurity is finally on the way up, which is something I think people should have been concerned about before now. But I have very thoughtfully left you a QR code so that you can scan that and take that survey at your convenience. And I think I have one more slide that isn't in the packet. So basically, it's what's new here. What should I know so that I can share it with the other towns in the region?
There was a recent,
Go, please. Yeah.
it's your meeting.
No, please. There's two hot ones.
There was a recent text amendment change in town, and a developer who's put in an application for an apartment complex here in town. It's, from what I understand, it's a 96 units. It's in the, it's on the border with New Haven, as a matter of fact, is where the property lies. And,
Infrastructure is a lot of.
yeah, that's in terms of it's not done or in progress. Well, actually, it is in progress. We have engineering in progress right now. We were granted a LOTSIP grant in excess of $8 million for connectivity in our business district. The engineering study has commenced and has been going on. We've been working with the state in regards, and they've already done some work and with some drainage issues that section of our town has experienced in the past, which we feel the work that's to be done, we feel should alleviate some of the issues that we've had. This year, 2025 will be more of an engineering study year and getting everything in order. And then next year will be when the actual construction and/or physical work will commence. And it'll be doing whatever is necessary it's traffic calming type of a thing. But in addition, there's also multinodal pathways that are part of this as well, which are wide sidewalks that allow for a combination of walking and biking. And it will serve to better connect those residents in that area to the businesses in that area. And we're hoping that it'll also help us in terms of bringing new businesses in, as well as some things as far as the residents are concerned.
That's great. It's something that I know has been talked about in many different forms and fashions. I think it's great that you actually gotten to that point.
Yeah.
I was looking and I couldn't find anything. Any word on the Heroes Tunnel?
The last thing that I was told is that was held off in terms of any, they weren't sure which direction they were gonna go in with the final design.
Okay.
And so they just held that off. One of the other elements that's pretty important, and I do know that it seems that there's a project with the Exit 59 interchange that had been previously scheduled out a bit. And the last documentation that I saw from SCROG indicated that it may be as near as 2026.
Yes.
So that could be rather significant, because that area of our that's a highly congested area, but it also happens to be where a lot of our businesses are. So it's been kind of inhibiting in growth in that area. So it's something that's of critical nature. So it was really pleased to hear that. So
You've got a lot of good news. I'm glad I came here. Do you?
Another thing is the Regency has taken up the 55 North community, and they have.
Oh, yeah.
that's
a
in
number-
progress. Thank you very much,
Yeah, a
Tony.
number of units, and I think they've sold and they're building more.
They say it's they did it. It was planned in 2 stages. First stage is virtually completed at this point in time. They're putting in the clubhouse and the pool. It's a total of 70 age-restricted units, also in the business district of our town. And not coincidentally, the multinodal pathways that I just spoke about will indeed connect those to the businesses in town. It's a total of 70 units, 35 on one side, 35 on the other side of Bradley Road. So thank you, that's a big one.
That's great. You have 2 housing projects. I'm very excited about that. I haven't
Well, the
heard
other
that
one isn't
anywhere
a
else. Okay, it's
project
only
yet.
my
The other
second one.
The application has been submitted, so obviously we have to go through the
Right.
process from that perspective.
Any questions for me? Well, thank you for having, oh,
I do, but you first, please.
So let's go through the data in your package, and based on your assessment of the region and various towns, where does Woodbridge fit in your perspective in terms of what we can offer and what, given the folks in New Haven, what industries in New Haven, where can we supplement and bring, and focus the benefits that this town offers to support and encourage more businesses to come in, or people to come in and grow our own businesses, and what kind of industries, and what niche can Woodbridge fit?
I think the last time I was here, we talked about because you guys really have to determine what you wanna be. So you can go and look at what parcels are available, what resources are available, and then once you have that information, then we can start looking at what's a good fit. Because I think trying to do it the other way, it's too hard. There are too many options. So if you can narrow it down first as to, you know, what would you like to see, then we can try and figure out what works where.
Because based on the data, you show that we have the highest population of folks with bachelor's degrees,
Mm-hmm.
highest median income for residents, cost of housing. Is there, should we be focused, I guess, answer if you can, should we be focusing on specific industries, sectors versus others?
In terms of creating employment,
Yes.
I think healthcare is definitely something that would be great. I also think, you know, it obviously depends on people's interests, but we definitely have openings in healthcare, manufacturing, the trades. The other areas probably wouldn't be as enticing to your residents, but those three I would focus on.
Thank you.
And with those workers, what's the relevance of labor unions? We're hearing an awful lot more about labor becoming more and more organized, unions are consolidating. Can you provide any color on that at all?
I really can't. It hasn't bubbled up to us yet. The only real union activity we've seen is at the Omni New Haven Hotel.
Yeah,
And that's it. That's the only thing we've actually seen.
okay.
Barbara, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and, you know, I'll see you next year, unless you need me
And we'll
before
get that
then.
code, we'll get that QR code up at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is an action item for appointment of an EDC chair and vice chair. This is an odd year, and 2025, so every odd year, all the commissions and boards have to appoint according to, I think it's the ordinances, to appoint a chair and a vice. Huh?
Which code?
Yeah, the ordinances. So, so I guess I would entertain, if there's been any discussion. I was, just learned of Scott's, resignation just a little while ago. But I would think we should entertain any motions for nominations for a chair and a vice chair. One of the things that Mika appoints also is a representative, and a very important representative, to the Technical Assistance Committee. We have a bar grant that funds a Country Club of Woodbridge master planning process, and that's an EDC grant, economic development from the state, and so therefore it makes sense that economic development, you have that whoever Mika appoints, he doesn't have to appoint the chair, but he has in the past and other commissions used the chairs, and so I think without Scott, we got to step up our game. So I'm buying time for you all to think about if we can have any nominations right now for a chair and a vice chair.
Are there any nominations?
Nominate Cliff next.
I would second that if and
accept, thank you.
and any discussion. I think Cliff would be a wonderful, my personal opinion is I think would be a wonderful addition as chair. That's just my discussion on that.
How do you feel about that, Cliff?
Yeah, you ready?
Yeah, I mean,
It certainly has been a learning curve since I think we can all agree on that, since we all kind of came on board at the same time. And Scott have been wonderful resources for us, giving us some information. So I think we're all headed in the right direction. I think we all have kind of the same goal in mind of where we need to be. And if we continue on the path that we're going and working as the team that we are, I think that, you know, we're only going to be doing the best we obviously can for the town. So with that said, I would accept that should you decide to go that route. Thank you.
I would definitely like to have a vote now. All those in
Do we move to vote? I mean,
Yeah,
okay. I'd make a motion to make a vote.
please. Okay. All those in favor?
Okay, let's vote.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Next is vice chair.
Can I just
Yeah.
ask a question? You seconded that motion, right? So originally, Stephen.
Steve, and I think I was the second, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, how about the vice chair? Any thoughts?
I'd like to nominate Steve Francis.
Second.
Discussion?
I'd be glad to accept the nomination.
Sitting next to Steve this past year, I know he knows his stuff, and I think he'd be
Yeah.
great.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly.
And he's committed, which we appreciate.
Motion to vote.
I so move.
Great.
Okay. Very good.
So, all those in favor? Aye, right. Great, thanks.
Steve, you actually have to vote or abstain.
For
vote.
myself.
Thank you. Tony has to record it, so.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
So, next up, I'm glad that went. So the next up is to establish our EDC goals and priorities. Was that right? He's not the chair. Fantastic.
It happens now?
Hmm?
Okay.
Fantastic, okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Okay with you if I
No, sure,
Stay
sure,
where I'm sitting.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Moving forward, looking at item number 6 on the agenda to finalize our goals and priorities set forth for the 2025 POCD. We all received that document from Tony. It was titled Thriving Businesses for Thriving Woodbridge, with several amendments since the first one that we sent out. I, for one, looking through this and reading it and rereading it, am very pleased with the changes that have been made. And I don't know if anyone has any comments specific to any of these points, or?
I did notice one of the changes, especially on the top about specifically talks integrated with properly connected transit supported vibrant communities. So that wording about specifically about transit, could we speak to that a little bit? Just why that change is put in. I think it's a good idea, but I just want to. I mean, was it because it wasn't as clearly. It wasn't clear enough in this original document, so we just.
I didn't make the change.
Why not?
So,
I'll comment.
I can't speak to that. That was chatty.
Yeah, I think I made that comment. So yeah, and bear with me here. As I read through the document, just going on my perspective and how I wanted to view the future of Woodbridge, whether it's right or wrong, I wanted to take as an integrated approach, not just focus on one area, our business district. We wanted to consider branching out to the rest of Woodbridge, other parts of Woodbridge, if it's possible, and kind of create one big integrated solution, or at least look at one big integrated solution. So, to me, transportation is an important part of that. So that's why.
No, I agree. I
added it, yeah.
just wanted to speak to it. Get on the record. Thank you.
Yeah, my comment too there, Rick, is that, Cliff, is that, and you're gonna see it again in another section, the properly, to me, I think, is a little bit unclear, and so maybe what is properly, I think we should either explain it, or maybe just not say what it is, and just say we need to have transit, to have a thriving business community. I don't know what properly connected.
I don't know if we have to be able to, I don't think we have to define it right now, because we can define that as we work toward it.
Yeah, it's a recommendation to the
Yeah.
POCD,
Yeah,
and so,
and as they work toward it.
but, in other words, the POCD is a process by which anybody that comes in and wants to do something, for instance, they say, I want to build a transit district. This is obviously just a recommendation to the POCD, and therefore, they would accept it or not. My instincts would tell me is that they would watch out for predefined terms and allow that to have optionality within the POCD. So if you said,
Agreed.
I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
connect an airport, but, and I'm just teasing, but, what is I just think,
But I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with you, I don't think we have to define properly, but that's their job.
right, so maybe
Yeah.
take it out or not?
No, leave it in. I think we should leave it in, because
I
let them
think-
determine what it
yeah.
is, but this is our recommendation.
They'll do that probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of things here that we need to, as a group, really focus on. And, one of the ones that jumped out at me is out visiting businesses, and being proactive and welcoming new businesses into Woodbridge, as well as continuing to talk with existing businesses and making those business owners feel welcome. We're the eyes and the ears of what's going on in town for the Board of Selectmen in terms of development in town. And I feel that we're at a pivotal point
Yep.
where we really need to be doing these things, need to be actively involved. And I sort of view this to be, it's really a terrific document, and I hope that I'm not overstepping the purpose, but this type of thing, it's a live document, and that if we, get into an environment where things have changed and something in here needs to be modified, we just resurrect the document, we bring it forward, and we make those edits and make those changes, so that it's comprehensive, so that it's relevant to what's happening in this time and age. But I think it's well done. I think it's a good start, and I'd like to recommend that we go forward with this.
I have one more just, along the lines of properly, and there's a strikeout, I guess, of identifying multiple areas for new vibrant communities to diversify opportunities and ensure the town's growth is not overly reliant. I think the word, and then that got replaced up top, business development plan, so I think it's great, but again, it's overly. And one of the things is, the POCD was amended, and it is a living document, right? So TP&Z can amend their POCD, and they did. So in 2015 it was adopted, but they amended it in 2021, and one of the subtle amendments, but meaningful amendments, to the POCD back in 2021 was that they took out some of the pre-definitions. And again, I think, they'll do that, but I just sort of think, we don't want to say overly reliant, just it's not reliant. It could be overly or underly, right? It could be modest or great, or, it's like to take out the predefined things that, without really talking about that, I just sort of think that would be better as a recommendation to TBC, that we just say, is not reliant, without saying overly or underly.
Isn't that being taken out, that whole section?
Overly is in the first. So formulate a cohesive business development plan with the potential to develop multiple business environments supported by efficient transit corridors, workforce housing, and engaged vibrant communities. Ensure the town's growth is not overly reliant on a single location. It was just my thought, it's not,
I was looking in the wrong spot, so.
yeah. But
What would be your recommended edit?
just delete it.
Delete overlay?
Yeah, this is not, so it's not reliant on a single location. That's our recommendation. If they choose to say, oh, it's overly, if they want to make a pre-definition, but I did take their lead when they modified, in my comment, I did take their lead when they amended it in 21 to take out, for instance, they took out modest, and they took out other things in the POCD amendment in 21, and they didn't say, like, excessive, or they didn't, they just didn't comment on what that view was. You'll know it when you see it,
Okay, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't think it doesn't change the meaning of
Yeah.
whether you have it or not.
Yeah. So I'm fine with that.
And so then, and the
Yeah.
POCD is a
Right.
document,
Yep.
from what I understand, I heard the first selectmen's meeting, the POCD document is a document that can be modified, and as the fact was in 21, and it's, so they can define it
Okay.
later.
Yeah.
This may be a very minor thing, but also, is it single location or single section or single? Relying on single location, single section?
Area.
Region,
Area.
area.
Right,
Better
yeah, that's
term.
good,
Yeah.
that's good.
The area kind of encompasses.
Yeah,
That's what I was looking for, thank you.
Yeah.
So on a single
Yep.
village,
So
right,
not-
community or neighborhood.
Yeah, but,
Not
yeah,
reliant on a single area.
area, yeah, that's better.
All right, so we're gonna strike overly, and we're gonna strike single location, and we're going to insert is not reliant on a
Single area.
Single area.
single area. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll strike location
Yeah.
and replace it with area.
Yeah.
Good.
I would say something I learned. I attended the Board of Selectmen's meeting on the strategic plan. And so from what, these are actually the implementation goals of, not with these modifications, but the implementation goals of the Board of Selectmen as opposed to the goals that are coming out in the strategic plan. So I just thought that that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that it kind of all is coming together.
Right.
With that strategic plan, looking back at it and what are the EDC's expectations or that coming from the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
This is all kind of, pointing in that,
Yeah.
that same direction that they're looking for us to go in. At the same time, we're able to bring our input in and hopefully work towards that implementation, right? So with that, was there any other points of change or points of concern within this document?
No.
Okay.
We all agree to keep it as a live document, as Steve was recommending.
Correct.
Yeah.
And as was noted by the Board of Selectmen even last night, and to Scott's point earlier, they've also agreed this is a living document, can move as needed.
Great.
With our input and or from TPZ or whoever else.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if that's,
And so I understand, this is what you will submit to Chris Sullivan as input for the POCD on behalf of the EDC.
Correct.
yes.
Thank you.
So someone go and make a
So
motion.
Yeah, I move that we submit the document as written with the amendments that we just discussed, specifically striking the word overly and changing the word location to area in that first bullet point.
Second.
Rick and Chatty,
Call for the discussion.
any discussion?
I like the idea.
And how will we deliver the document officially?
We'll make these changes that we've discussed and submit it to you and then also to Chris.
Yeah, you could either
And
send it
yourself.
to Chris directly or send it to me and I'm happy to forward it to Chris, whatever works
Okay.
best for you.
I'd appreciate it if you did copy Tony and Chris so that Tony can get it to the First Selectman's office for review by the Board of Selectmen.
Got it.
Just,
We need to vote.
I'm not
Full vote though on that? Everybody's-
Right. Do it. Call a vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
While you're
Great.
on the topic of the POCD, if I might make a couple of comments, just from a time frame standpoint on January 29th. Right now, it's scheduled that there will be what's being referred to as a commission roundtable. And from 4 to 6 o'clock, commissions will be invited for 15-minute increments to specifically input. And that'll be the commission members, whoever. It's not just the chairs or anything along those lines. So if you individually feel like it's important that you input on something from a POCD standpoint, it'll allow you that opportunity, but it will be a roundtable, so it'll be, you know, they'll give you a schedule. They'll let you know when to expect it. But in case you hadn't heard, I just want to make sure you knew that date. Subsequent to the 29th, we expect a draft. They expect to have a draft going to the TPZ in the February timeframe. In the end of February timeframe, if whatever the TPZ feels it's okay to put out there, the Board of Selectmen will then be given a draft as well as SCROG, as well as our Council of Governments. And the Board of Selectmen will have 65 days to review and modify however we might feel is required. We can hold public meetings and review with however we feel is appropriate over that period of time, and then submit to them what it is we feel our changes or whatever we feel is best to submit. And the deadline is May 15th. Obviously, we'll want the public hearing for approval on this sometime before that, in case whatever, just to make sure it's, so you count back that from 65 days, that's about the time that the Board of Selectmen will receive it, and then from there, those days go by, and
Okay.
so I wanted to just give you an idea, a sense, but the big thing was right now, January 29th, the roundtable is scheduled.
Any question, how you gonna, did SLR or TPC say how they're gonna run the round? Like, is it a free-for-all with the commissions, or what's
My understanding is that there
procedure?
will be a schedule specific, you know, they're doing it, obviously looking for folks, it's between 4 and 6, obviously for people who can take time from work and be here early, and for those people who can't, so I'm not sure on that
But it
part
would
of
be
the
like
logistics.
just Cliff and Steve going?
No, like I said, I
Yeah,
think the intent is,
We can go if we want.
yeah, that's my understanding,
Yeah.
that's my understanding, exactly,
Yeah,
so
I'll
that
check
any
with Scott.
input that can be made. And
Should we
I
be
may be
talking-
mixing that up now that I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it with the country club, the way they're doing it, so I'll
Okay.
verify
I
it and let,
understood that there'll be invitations.
that's what I
That's
understand.
Chris told me.
And then the ground rules for how it runs, yeah.
It will be outlined too. I think I am mixing, I know we discussed how we want to do we want to make sure that all the boards and commissions have and all the members of the boards and commissions have an opportunity to input into the country club process, and I might be overlapping those two, so I apologize if that's the case, but I'll verify that.
That was gonna be 6 to 8,
So,
I thought
this
they
was
said.
gonna, that's a public session
Okay.
that's an open house for the public, 6 to 8 on the same day, just so.
Oh, okay.
For the country club. From 1 to 3, the way it's, POCD is from 1 to 3 with the staff, specifically with the staff, and then from 4 to 6 with the commissions. And then from 5:30 to 8, there will be an open house by the consultant on the country club, by Cooper Robertson.
Oh, that'd be
And that open house is for the town?
That's for everyone, that's exactly right, that's for the public.
public.
That's held where?
That'll be held at the
Senior center.
the Woodbridge Center, at the cafe.
And I'm sorry, Mika, that's been published to the town, that information?
We received that information as confirmed yesterday at the Board of Selectmen meeting.
Okay.
So I don't think communication has gone out on that, but I'm here, so I figured I'd let you know.
And you said 5:30 to when?
5:30 to 8. Chad, it might be 6 o'clock because of the overlap, but it's gonna be.
Just for my own record
Yeah,
keeping, that's all.
that's what I think. I can appreciate that.
And is it a presentation, or is it just
It's-
like
it's-
people walking around asking questions, or?
It's very similar to what they did for the POCD here in this room, and I don't know if you attended, but basically there's gonna be stations set up with different components and different
Yeah.
elements of what they're trying to do, and it'll be set up around the entire room. And so people can go from station to station and input in the way that they want to. Chances are there'll be members of the Board of Selectmen, as well as members of the staff and members of Cooper Robertson attending as well. But yeah, that's basically the setup. You're welcome.
Anything else on that, Mika?
No, do you have any questions regarding POCD that I might be able to help with?
Nope, don't think so.
Okay, moving on to fiscal year 26 budget and goals that was sent out. With an explanation of, we'll start with the goals, I suppose. chance to look at that earlier?
That's this one?
It is.
Okay. I just looked at it now.
I see the performance indicators were added.
And who's this going to?
This was sent to us, and I assume that this would accompany
Go,
the
here's,
budget.
yeah, here's the budget, and this is the explanation, and then
Oh,
it
correct,
goes
the
to the
report.
finance department.
Right.
Okay.
Which they'll start the budget process this month in January. Variety of different budget meetings that will be scheduled, so all departments, boards and commissions are asked to submit their budget.
Okay.
Additionally, all boards and commissions are asked to submit a report on the previous year within the first 2 months of the next year type of thing, so this also serves from that purpose as well. It could serve, depending on how thorough you make it and how much more you wanna input, or you wanna provide.
Question, Cliff, on this one. On the major objectives for next year, I think it's great. Partner with the 23rd Ad Hoc Committee to progress business district revitalization, right? Then the new performance indicator, and does it reference 2030, like placemaking recommendation to BOS? Should that be 2030? Maybe ask Steve, the liaison to 2030. Is that placemaking recommendation from 2030? Because they were, they've been so involved in that placemaking process that I would hate to see new faces and voices come in on that. If you're suggesting EDC is going to be making the placemaking recommendation, you would want the familiar faces that's run the charrettes and so forth for the town on the 2030 committee, i.e. Chris.
Right.
He's a real asset there. He was there for all the charrettes and understands it, so you might want to say 2030 placemaking recommendation, but that's just a question for the liaisons.
What'd you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I guess I'm not really clear on what you're.
So let me
What you're
provide a
driving
little bit more, in my reviewing, this process happens every 10 years, and when studying it, I found it quite charged. And so there were recommendations 10 years ago for zoning improvements to support placemaking initiatives. And so I think, if we're going to be saying in our budget, we're going to be one of our, I guess, this is a speech to the budget committee or something, and we're submitting for the POCD our goals, our implementation goals. I just worry that that the placemaking that was begun needs to be continued by the same people. It's, you can't, ask that, but it's, we got to integrate that more, so it's not, because it gets pretty charged up, and I can't speak to that. If you put me on as a liaison, I'd have a real uptick to do that before I would make recommendations for zoning improvements down there. Oftentimes those come from the developer, right, from the opportunities. But if you're going to be actually proactively making zoning changes, I don't know that I'm prepared to do that, or qualified to do that.
Sure. Okay.
But 2030 was their next agenda item. Thoughts, Mika?
Yeah, I'll differ with you only in the sense that you have to keep in mind the difference this year is that you do have a resource in the way of our town planner who can work with this group specifically. At some point in time, 2030 is a committee, you are a commission. What 2030 is doing should at some point in time migrate to you, is my sense, if you're asking me what I think. So from that perspective, it needs to happen, and if there can be a shared arrangement, so as you're both approaching this and working on this, obviously one group who's had all the history and the other group who's going to take it forward, working with the town planner who has the experience from a zoning change perspective. I do very much agree with you that 2030 needs to be a part of this and should be kind of spearheading it. as particularly as zoning changes are concerned, since they've done so much work down there, and really recognize what the residents are looking for down there, so I think that's critical. But I do feel it's important that this commission also make progress toward that and leverage the town planner in doing so.
I feel like the little kid in fourth grade, when you get an idea, you go, ooh, 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 ooh. So maybe,
Or it's ADHD.
It's one of the other, how about?
That's one of them.
how did you know? No, maybe to that we come up with a mechanism that's really cool. I don't know, just a suggestion. Like maybe it should be a transition, not taken over, but there should be a subcommittee, and that really is continuity, that subcommittee with the planner now, to say that that is just a quick subcommittee. It's not been taken over by EDC, and they're gonna be telling these what the zoning changes are gonna be, you know, and have that planner introduced by the continuity down in that area. I think that might be a fantastic idea. I don't know what you guys think.
So is your concern that you don't wanna make the zoning recommendations because you don't feel qualified to do that?
It-
Is that the? is
I
that-
just, when I watched it last 10 years ago, there was and they tried to make, the town tried to make zoning changes. It had its thing. And, 2030 was involved in the charrettes and was involved in what we're doing and understood the lay of the land and the,
You're moving 10 years ago, they weren't there.
no, I'm sorry, well, the zoning changes.
Got it.
And so, I'm sorry, and so 2030, folks understood that process back then and understand it today. And I think the continuity would be fantastic now, giving that resource of the planner to that process, and then it's, set it up as a subcommittee or something like that. I don't know if that makes sense, or can you do that, but I just hate to say that 2030 was taken over by EDC. When it has such momentum, it got a lots of grant, it has its own, it has placemaking ideas.
But it's
And I
not-
apologize if I'm indicating that, it's a migration.
Yeah,
But I
yeah, it's
feel
not,
EDC
yeah,
needs
that's
to
not
take
my
on-
sense. It is, their business is gonna get to a certain spot naturally, and then naturally it makes sense for them, their efforts to move into
Yeah.
us. It's not like we're taking over
Yeah.
them, so.
But I just think Chris was so important to that process, and Susan, of course, and other members of that as well. But the chairs, the co-chairs were so important to that process.
And I think that, to your point, they did in their recommendations show where there could be some change, zoning-wise,
Yeah.
in order to kind of bring this whole idea together. So, I agree with you on that, trying to bring these groups together to kind of pinpoint where we're going in that business district would be essential. And to make a change on the performance indicator or otherwise, I'm certainly open to, changing the wording or making any changes. that
Maybe
you
after
wish.
the 2030, you could say 2030 placemaking, or if you want to imply that there's a migration process that's going to be worked on, some sort of 2030 / EDC placemaking recommendation. I don't know, just throwing it out there.
I like that second one.
Slash.
The slash one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, just
Thank
so
you.
we're not saying, we're gonna start over.
Yeah,
Right.
so after that one's, 2030 / EDC placemaking recommendation to BOS.
I think that's what the expectation is, though. And if you think practically what's happened,
Yeah.
and the 2030 commission has been pretty much, falling by the wayside. I believe that they are passing the baton,
Oh, yeah.
to EDC. We had, Chris Dickerson, who was here, alone, largely because nobody else was able to make it. And I think that's been pretty consistent in how the 2030 group has kind of been handling things over the course of whatever the past 8 to 10 months or so. So, I mean, we certainly want to include them at all times. But by the same token, I don't think that we can obligate them. So, I mean, I guess I mean, in terms of a performance indicator, I mean, what is it really that we're trying to accomplish? We wanna execute on the 2030 plan.
Again, all I'm saying is that we would have to sit down and start to consider that placemaking recommendation, and I certainly wasn't here, so I'm not any value there. And I'm just, I don't know who EDC was in the 2030 placemaking. The continuity, it just seems to me that I would really love to solicit, you can't make them, but say, are some of those folks on the 2030 really help us with that transition if we're gonna go there?
It seems more like a technical issue that you're
Yeah.
kind of discussing, and
Yep.
it's probably easy to get over just by doing the slash like you suggested. Keeping in mind that the 2030 commissions, one of their charges in one of the, what they came up with was two components of a project or a plan, let me put a plan.
Right.
One was connectivity, one was placemaking.
Right.
So until such time as that placemaking plan is delivered, since they've been working on it, they will continue to work on it. So they would be, or should be, in my opinion, I would want to hear as part of the Board of Selectmen from 2030, some representatives from 2030 as
Okay.
part of that.
All right.
However, recognizing that at some point in time, their charge will migrate into the role of the EDC. EDC should be a part of that as well. So it's more from, because the way it's in, when I say technical, I mean, it's just because this is the Economic Development Commission performance indicator, and it's indicating placemaking recommendation to BOS, which says you're gonna make a placemaking recommendation. By putting 2030 there, you will do it in conjunction with them. Semantics, technical,
so-
I don't think it's a big issue.
Okay.
So in conjunction with the 2030.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
You should know what they're doing, because at some point in time, you'll need to know what they're doing, that type of thing.
And back to our implementation goals that are come from the Board of Selectmen, we say, work with Peary Associates for placemaking and SLR. We work with them, but I don't know that we, cold off the hopper, should be proposing it yet,
Okay.
Yeah. That was my
So-
only
So
comment.
I'd like to make a motion to
I
pass.
think you can do it for the entire document as opposed to each individual. If you agree on it, move on and do the document. That's up to you.
I was thinking that, for the document with that one change we just discussed with the slash.
Okay.
So that's my, make that
Very good.
motion.
So we have that motion. Second. Sherry?
Any discussion?
Just technically, just for Scrivener's error, probably put 230 in conjunction with 230 in front of one, not
Okay.
after one, because
Yeah.
it probably applies to all three.
I thought in conjunction with the 2030 commission, make a placemaking recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
And then it would apply to 2 and 3 as well.
So, do we have language for Tony?
Right.
So is there a new motion to that? So there's gonna be a new motion, right? So the new motion, are you?
Okay, yeah, I'd like to move that the performance indicators under the bullet, partner with 2030 ad hoc committee.
Yeah, I don't mean to, I just,
Subsequent to number 1, in conjunction with the 2030 commission, make a placemaking recommendation to the Board of Selectmen.
I need to just be, for my purposes, so I'm understanding since I'm here. No, I'm sorry.
No, good.
But if you put in conjunction with the 2030 committee before the actual one in parentheses, it's saying in conjunction with the committee, we're doing all three.
Right, it's with all
Okay,
three.
That's what we're suggesting.
I
I
see.
just wanted to clarify.
because I think,
So-
yeah, I agree, yeah, 'cause I
So
agree with
prior
that, because
to-
recommended
Right,
zone,
to the numeral 1.
Correct, then it's saying, in
Okay.
conjunction with the 2030 committee, colon,
Yep,
1, 2, 3.
Yep.
Okay.
because 3's a crucial one.
Okay, should I reiterate that? Would that be helpful to you, Tony?
So I have that, Stephen's motion to make the amendment to the document so that in front of that performance indicator, it will read in conjunction with the 2030,
Subsequent to the
Task force.
performance indicators, Tony.
I'm sorry,
Subsequent, it'll say performance indicator in conjunction with.
yeah,
So-
in conjunction
Got it.
with the 2030 task force, and then put 1, 2, 3. Okay?
Colon, 1, 2, 3.
Colon.
Right
I'm
here.
not gonna list all of it.
Sorry.
Another English major.
Yep. Got it.
Be precise.
And
Sorry,
then
That's-
Sherry,
I'm a grammar, like,
you seconded that?
yes.
Okay. Any further discussion there?
Yeah.
Okay. In favor of,
Aye.
opposed? All in favor?
Can we kill the to be determined in the next one?
No,
Huh?
but it hasn't been figured out yet.
No, but we just voted on one change, right?
No, we voted on the whole document.
I'm sorry.
Oh, we voted on the whole document.
And if whatever it's worth, I think the to be determined there should be some input from what's happening in terms of the consultant.
Yeah, you gotta figure that out first.
Okay.
Yep.
And then looking at,
So, I'm
Go
sorry, just in reading your performance indicators, that, establish formal cadence for engagement with Woodbridge businesses in support of retention and expansion. 3 sites visit per quarter, and that's 3 site visits by the EDC.
EDC.
right, and we have the retention subcommittee.
Thank you.
Yep.
And the objective of those site visits is what?
Well, that's been something that we've discussed over the past several months, even longer than that what were we trying to do? Steve came up with some questions when he had gone and spoken with a certain business, which came back with some interesting information, if I recall. Do we try and sit down and flesh it out exactly, what items, what area of importance we want to go into these places with, whatever type of businesses they are, whether they're healthcare, whether they're manufacturing or otherwise? Or do we go in and just kind of introduce ourselves, say, hey, what do you guys need? What are you looking for? So there's kind of open-ended that way, but do we need to, or do we want to be more pointed to get, a certain answer or answer any particular question that we may have?
I like the latter. I don't want to go down there just to meet and greet. Not that I'm against that. It's just I want to bring
Yeah,
something.
and listen.
I want to bring something substantial to the businesses, whether it's helping them connect to other businesses, or finding out some other way of helping them, whatever that way is. I don't know.
When I had the opportunity with Mika to visit with the folks at ServPro, the perfect example was that the whole connectivity plan, if you will, they had really no idea about it. While they were there, they were down in that business district. They were more or less unaware of what the plant was, and he was enthusiastic about seeing some change. But I think the whole idea, and this is going to go well beyond us, but if we can have open dialogue and communicate all of this, whether it just be on an EDC front, that part down in the business district, or going forward, whatever projects are going to come to town, if we can be a mechanism to assist and make it clear to people and be transparent.
Yep.
That's what they're looking for. I mean, that's what was spoken about extensively last evening at the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Is they want transparency, they want communication. So I think that's where we are. And by reaching out to these businesses and doing so in such a manner, I think that's only gonna be beneficial to us, because we're gonna be able to learn, at the same time,
Yeah.
you know, showing them that, you know, we're actually listening to you and we can bring back what
Yeah.
they're asking for and try and, you know, working with the board of selectmen and whoever else needs to be in play
Right.
to address these concerns and, you know, ultimately be here for what we're here for,
Right.
economic development. If they can build on their business based on something that they're bringing back to us and we can assist in whatever manner it is, it's only gonna be a plus.
And we can go and we can tell them this is what we're thinking on a macro level. This is the ideas, the general directions we're thinking we're going to go in, but we want your input on that. What do you like? How's this going to help you? What could you share with us that we haven't thought about that could help you down the line as well? And then that'll help shape what we do coming back, and that open dialogue I think is
Yeah.
necessary.
And we plan on doing that one business at a time, or is there a forum where we're bringing multiple businesses in together to kind of build off of their ideas, each other's ideas?
That was all soft.
If I might, also, it's, I think there's a need, and one thing that I did want to mention, and this is a good time because it's a goal. One thing I did want to mention, I think there's a need for us to have some sort of a session with 2030 in the business district. Mr. Fitzpatrick at Crest has offered his facility as a location to do this, and where we outline what's happening from an engineering standpoint, now that we have the grant.
Yeah.
I've communicated with a number of the businesses down there myself already, but I think there's a need and it's an opportunity for us to bring a number of businesses together and say, and have 2030 outline exactly what this is all about. It helps the commission understand it a little bit better, so you're that much more comfortable and familiar with it. And it gives us an opportunity to bring a number of businesses together.
Yeah.
And deliver a message and also ask for input and let them know what your plans are in terms of outreach and things of that nature.
Yep.
So, and timing on that is, you've got time, it's not as if it's gotta be done, so.
So one thing I'd add to that is it, to keep ourselves honest, is it a good idea for us to give ourselves that metric or milestone to bring a forum together
It's a great idea, why not?
so we don't keep kicking it down the road?
Okay. I agree.
You can put some time on it, like second quarter or something along those lines where,
Yeah, I don't know what the right
Well, it's third quarter
Timing is-
summer, and that might be not the best time. Is second quarter too aggressive? Is fourth quarter too late?
4 months to plan it is pretty good.
Okay. Second quarter.
second quarter. Yeah, I agree. Fourth
Second
would be too
quarter.
late.
Okay. So the language would be,
Conduct a forum with local businesses by the second quarter of 2025.
by the end of the second quarter.
By the end of the second quarter.
Give us to June 30th.
By the end of the second quarter, 2025.
Yeah.
To include information on the lots of grant.
Yep.
Again, with 2030.
In connection with.
Can I say something about that bullet? All those little goals that you're looking at, that first bullet, it says, right in the first, it says partner with 2030 it should be task force,
Okay.
it's the 2030 task force for progress business district revitalization. And then those bullets sort of substantiate that. So even though we're adding the 2030 comment, it was already in, it was there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, but I know that you voted on that, so I put that in minutes.
Just reinforces it,
Yeah.
for those specific ones.
So I move we amend this document again with the language that Chidi set forth.
Second? Scott, second.
A second, if Tony's clear on what it is.
Scott seconded it.
Scott seconded it already.
To a motion to accept,
I motion that we accept it.
to motion,
You have the language, Tony?
but I'll listen back to it and I'll listen. to annotate. Did you finalize your?
Yeah, I can, you wanna, we start with something? Hopefully I captured it correctly. Everybody, please correct me. Conduct one business forum by the end of second quarter 2025 to discuss lots of status and, I think I added this one on my own, add other activities impacting Woodbridge businesses. If that's appropriate.
I think it's fair.
I like that.
So that is language for the third, under the third bullet, right?
Third bullet.
The performance indicator under the third bullet.
Cliff, we already have a committee for that, right?
We have the committee for
Meeting, right?
Yeah.
yourself and Rick.
Okay.
And we had that one-off with Dale and Scott on Zoom, where Dale came in and kind of gave us the background on
Yeah.
retention.
Yeah.
So we could certainly revisit that
Yeah.
Yep.
going forward along with
Yep.
this. Great. So that was seconded.
Yeah, it's
No
been-
further,
it's been
any
moved.
further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Good. All right.
Looking at the actual budget numbers. The explanation.
So I will say, when I spoke to Scott, we had thrown the $40,000 in there for the Up Next pop-up project.
Mm-hmm.
Because we weren't gonna use the ARPA funds for that, so we had thrown it in there. And we've been talking to Tony about that as well, so we're gonna have to, you and I are gonna connect on that.
Okay.
For a follow-up, but that's why that's in there.
And Tony, do you know if what's requested here kind of aligns with what was requested in 2024, 2023, 2022? Take the answer another time, just, I don't know.
So it's showing what was in 2020, last fiscal year.
If I'm,
So everything's pretty much the same, a little bit of an increase. So it says adopted fiscal year 25 adopted budget.
Yep. And I was just asking, did we spend this much in 2024? Did we spend that much in 2023?
I'm sorry, I wasn't involved in the process, so I
Okay,
don't want to give incorrect information.
just make sure we're kind of on track, that's all.
Sure.
We're not
Makes
asking for
sense to-
too little or
To
too
look back
much.
at from a historical perspective.
Yep.
Maybe that's something we can circle back on. Is there a particular deadline that this has to be submitted, Tony?
I wasn't involved in the budget process, but I believe Scott may have been dealing with Karen Crosby. She does
Right,
the budget.
okay,
Sooner
I
is
thought
better.
it was due on 4th, but I could be wrong.
okay.
You're right. It was due earlier, so
oh,
sooner is better.
oh, okay.
I think we proceed.
Or were you saying
Yeah.
4th of
Yeah.
February?
No, I said 4th of June.
That's what I thought.
That's what I understood.
Right.
'Cause
If it's due, then
Yeah. Well,
Let's
yeah,
do-
I think,
that's okay.
I mean,
I don't
there
need the
is some
answers.
value to looking back, that far back, but it does compare to this past fiscal year. The
Yeah, I
fiscal year 25, and I don't think it's out of line, and I do think it aligns with our objectives for this year. And so I
Certainly.
think it's good to move forward with it.
For the most part, based on the way EDC had been operating previous to my understanding, I wasn't here either, but I can tell you that the numbers you see projected were at those numbers or close to those numbers
Okay.
fair
previously.
enough, fair enough, thank you.
Cliff and
With the
Steve,
exception, obviously, of the
40K,
$40,000.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a little different.
Cliff and
That 40,000.
Cliff and Steve, while you got Mika here, there's an awful lot of, from our own business district, but there's an awful lot of networking that can be done. For instance, do we have a membership
that would apply to all EDC or the chairman or the vice chair for such stuff as the Greater New Haven. There's lots of different things, and making those connections, we're gonna run into people like David Corus, we're gonna run into, and I was up in a Brownfield, and I was up in Hartford. I've always just covered those out of pocket, but I think you might wanna think about and get some input from Meek of what he does and how he feels about that. But there's an awful lot of good connections from EDC that can be done because, there's lots of opportunities out there, especially since it's, Woodbridge Forward kind of a idea. And I think there's a lot of positive traction on the Woodbridge Forward, as we heard from Rex.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, Mika, if
I think it's
what I mean, like, should we have a little bit more budget so you can go to, and I'm not saying cocktail parties, I'm saying networking events where where you go.
I did ask Allison just today, coincidentally.
Yeah.
Good thought.
Yeah.
To check on the costs for membership in the Greater New Haven Chamber of Commerce and in the Orange Chamber of Commerce. Barry Cohen at the Orange Chamber of Commerce has been very, very inviting, welcoming in terms of seeing about Woodbridge and Woodbridge businesses being part of the Orange and possibly changing the name to Amity or something along those lines. So I know that they're anxious to see if we would like to partner with them in some way, shape, or form. What I don't know is the costs of those.
Yeah.
But I couldn't agree with Scott more in terms of, I think it's,
And a budget for
worth
SCROG,
considering.
even a budget for SCROG, like, there's an awful lot of good stuff at the SCROG where Mika's, Guilford sent 10 people the other day, and Mika, is carrying the ball by himself, so, I think Steve and Clay might wanna consider those kinds of things on a budget basis as well.
Okay.
That was just my thought.
so if you want to, Cliff, reach out to Allison tomorrow. There's a good likelihood she'll have some of that information, and you can incorporate it in here.
Okay.
But Greater New Haven meets on a regular basis, and
They
the
do.
contacts, Scott said, the contacts that are available there, and they look for, it's a perfect opportunity to say, to kind of look for, there are businesses that might not be able to find what they want in another area in the Greater New Haven area, that we could now become part of that conversation.
And looking at this, under the fourth item, professional development with dues, because as of now, we had been involved with Greater New Haven's Economic Development Committee. They had done a few in person, but most of it was done via Zoom, with some pretty interesting topics that were discussed. Looking at this, I would have assumed that was wrapped into professional development dues as a membership to that organization. That's something I can certainly circle back on. I got this today, so I don't know exactly. I could certainly reach out to Scott and see where that number came from.
Yeah, it looks like he says it's CT Main Street and Amity Chamber of
And
Commerce.
CT Main Street was $750,
Yeah, and then Amity Chamber of Commerce he has there.
right? Which would be, I would assume, in conjunction, like you had mentioned with Orange,
Well,
With Orange, this,
what we had talked about
So
when we were together.
Seems as if his proposed budget might include that already, just doesn't include Greater New Haven, so.
Okay.
okay.
But that, I would say that if everybody would be in agreement, that the Greater New Haven is one that any of us could jump in on these meetings that they have. Again, it's once a month on a Wednesday morning. So if you can attend in person or attend via Zoom, it's been, I found that the number that I've attended was pretty interesting and informative. So we've come up with a cost on that. You could possibly adjust that number on the fourth line item for that one. Okay.
Cliff, what I could do for you also is I'm gonna check with Carolyn Crosby. believe year after year, we've been involved with the chamber. I just don't know whose budget that comes out of.
Okay.
So let me at least find that part out for you. Or maybe Scott may even already know that. I'm
I was
not
trying to move it from mine to theirs, so
Oh, is that what you
thanks,
did?
Tony, for calling me out on that.
I'm sorry.
So am I hearing we have to table the approval of this budget until we get that number? Is that what I'm hearing?
that on the agenda, approval.
I don't know if we have that flexibility, do we?
Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, it's,
Yep. So am I hearing, I mean, part of what I'm hearing is, should we table this, but I'm also hearing we can't table, we shouldn't table this. So should we just come up with a number, and then pass it with that guess? No? So I asked the question.
Would you say that, historically speaking, the membership to Greater New Haven Chamber came under First Selectmen's or a
I know we
different
didn't,
line item?
I know we didn't fund it this last year. I know
Okay.
that for sure.
Okay.
Because I'd asked about that when we were looking at doing some things with them, so. Rick, your idea is probably the best thing to give an estimate, in terms of what it would be and
Okay.
go from there.
Okay.
Then that way you can submit it, and until it's complete, you're gonna have
Okay.
another chance to review it, and if there's a change, if you check tomorrow and you find out that there's a change, you
Okay.
can send Tony a correction. Both
Okay.
Tonys.
Or Karen, I
Or
guess
Karen,
is over
yes.
here.
Karen.
I'm trying to look it up right now.
Thank you. How much membership is there?
I'm guessing 5.
Of course, I'm still trying.
I'm
to
guessing
remedy.
5, but
I'm guessing
Steve's
5,
Steve's looking.
550, I'm guessing 550.
563.
But if you go over, you lose.
You get nothing.
No,
You get nothing.
call it a day.
I remember I felt embarrassed for going and with,
Chadi, I'm realizing, I thought for sure on my laptop I had we do a lot of paper copies for the budget, when the budget comes around. This year we're doing it a little different, but last year I must have had all the paper copies. I was looking for 22, 23, 24.
It's
But
okay.
it looks like I can't.
Greater New Haven, Steve.
We're a relatively insignificant portion of our overall budget, so I'm not worried.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not either. Nice graphics though in the picture.
Oh, here it is. Well, there's a menu. A chamber member, $4.95.
I was off.
500, you off by $5.
I was off.
Directing partner, $9.95.
Yeah.
Executive partner.
What's that guy?
Yeah.
That'll get us a free meal or anything?
Steve, go for executive.
And leadership partner.
I propose that we increase that number to 500 more.
Okay.
2,000.
So that will go to 2,000.
Sounds good.
And then just add that. So,
How'd you do that?
We're gonna stick out like a percentage sore thumb. Percentage wise, yes.
Yeah.
We are going to be the top of the percentage delta.
Okay.
$1 million percentage increase.
The other thing to consider along those lines is what the potential is for grant for some funding, particularly that particular type of funding.
Yeah.
So
Of course.
certainly when you go into, when they ask about this and you're in there to explain what it is, it's something worth mentioning.
Okay.
All right, so in absence of any other discussion of any of the other lines, I move that we approve this budget with the change that I mentioned, the budget item for professional development dues. That figure should now be $2,000. And then in the narrative, put after Amity Chamber of Commerce, put comma, Greater New Haven Chamber.
Great. Okay.
Second.
I like making Tony's job easier.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any
Don't have to go to
further
tape.
discussion there? Yeah, get the
All in
tape.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. moving on to number 8, under update. The only information that I could share with regards to the CCW is the information that we've already mentioned about the 29th, and some information coming forward in an open house for the town. I don't have any information on the TAC. Is there anything that you want to share?
There was a presentation done last night at the Board of Selectmen's, and I told you in regards to the open house for the community on the 29th. There was discussion, we're looking at they've already identified some information, they've gathered information, that's what their process is right now. And they put a lot of information together in terms of what I'll call the basics, in terms of describing or kind of quantifying what we're talking about, country club, what property is, where sewer lines are, where parking is, things of that nature, some very logistical type of information. The other piece from that to trying to figure out what we might want to name the project. There's one we're thinking we would like to have a name for the project. That kind of CCW master plan is what everybody knows it as. It's, and I made the comment, and not everybody agrees with me, but my sense is that, if you're at a cocktail party and say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about CCW, more times than not, everybody's, okay, what's gonna happen? So, it's nice to talk, to see if we can change that and like rebrand that into something that we're doing that's kind of identifies what it is, but at the same token, gives it a look forward, that we're looking to do something forward. So as minute detail as it might seem like what the name of the project is, my sense is it feels, and we also thought maybe it would be a good opportunity to make that an element of what they do on the 29th, to give the community some input on that and see if somebody comes up with something. But in
That's
the
good.
meantime, make some recommendations that at least give people some ideas as to what we're thinking. And there were a number, what you can do, and I don't know if it's here yet, it usually takes a couple of days. We have made sure, I think on the front page of the front webpage, there's a link for CCW information, if I'm not mistaken, Tony.
Yes, Allison had put something up right on the front page, you could link.
So that we will be looking to keep as up to, there's a link right on there from CCW master plan updates. So the presentation they provided last night will be on there if it isn't already. I believe it is already. Their schedule is on there already. That's right on the front page. And it's a great place to, if you're looking to find out what's happening, that's a great place to go to get that information. And we're going to try to keep it as up to date as possible in terms of the information that's being shared with the Board of Selectmen.
Would you expect that what they were showing you as kind of a template for their plan for the open house would be shared on the website prior to the 29th, or are they going to button that up first and then?
Yeah, no, I don't think on the website you'll find like what to expect. There might be a description
Sure.
in terms of what to expect,
Okay.
of that nature. And they, like, for example, in the presentation they did yesterday, there was they did some pictures in terms of showing it. And for anybody who attended that POCD open house, looks very much like that. But no, I don't know exactly how they'll do that,
Okay.
to be honest with you, Cliff. Just trying to think if there's anything else that. But it gives you very specific information specifically in regards to mission and, different descriptions and things of that nature. Engagement plans. So one thing I will mention now that you've taken a vote is that my in terms of putting together the TAC, I felt it was important I felt it was important that the representative of the different commissions on the TAC be the chairs.
Okay.
So provided that you're willing to do that, that would be part of the responsibility that goes with being the chair.
Okay.
And if not, and if you can't make it, then obviously the vice chair would be invited to attend.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of what else you might need. Any questions that you have that I might be able to answer along those lines?
Not right now.
I have maybe something for Cliff and Steve to think about, when I watched the SLR presentation at the Selectman's office, you know, you and I were there together, I think we also, and Dale would do this, but Dale's not really, you know, I don't know if he's gonna be out there obtaining these things. We have reporting requirements to the bar, but what's important, and we discussed, Cliff, at as you recall, in one of our meetings, that we don't wanna lose sight of really the facts. And it's one thing to have a consultant with the visions and the naming and the branding and all that, and the community input's all important, but really the underlying facts is important. So for instance, rather than we have a deliverable under the bar grant, right, that says we want to do an infrastructure study. It's not expensive, but a real study, not where it is. Is it 12 inches? What's it made of? What's that pipe made of? What's the pumping station capacity? Was the pumping station up on Ansonia Road for the sewer? You know, can it handle the flow? You know, all those kinds of things. Regional water, the water station seems to be abandoned from the country club, you know, because I opened the door and bats flew out, a crazy amount of bats. I don't know if you ever hiked that. But so that, obviously that's all disconnected and stuff like that. So I think that's just one example of the deliverables under the bar, and why that's important is to make sure, Dale's got to make sure that we stay funded. So I'm just passing this off because it was part of the consideration that I always used to say to Scott. But the other thing that's really important is, you know, if we do this correctly and we come up with a plan that the state says meets their goals, then we have the opportunity to apply for a remediation grant, which will allow us to do an awful lot up there to implement. And, you know, we're losing sight of the environmental component up there. And the budget item is $2 million, I think, on the budget. Check with Tony Genovese on that, but I think it's 2. Now, that might have some demo in it, but it's a lot of it's remediation. And so it was like 700,000 years ago, but
It has demo in it.
it may have some demo in it, but it was 700 on the environmental remediation alone. So, you know, you're gonna have to consult the LEPs. So these consultants are not, you know, and so you got this sort of this bar process, you know, and this other process going. But you know, there's some really good stuff that could happen if we stay on top of that bar, and that's, you know,
To that end,
yeah.
Dale has been engaged separately from this engagement with you folks as a representative from Rex to help, to assist us. We've got a lot going on right now in different areas, and I feel it's critical from my perspective that we maintain some means by which we can have an umbrella, someone who's looking at all the different elements, things exactly like what Scott is saying.
Yeah, that's under the grant. That's under the grant, actually.
All of the
Paying
grants.
for Dale.
We were very fortunate this year. We were able to secure a number of the grants. We were very unfortunate that all these grants take a lot of time and resources to manage, to respond to, and things of that nature. So Dale is going to help us with this. So he'll be very important in terms of the brownfield, that's the bar grant, and putting together that information to make sure we adhere to the requirements and don't have to give any money back.
It's
So-
about compliance.
Exactly. And Scott mentioned
And the
it
data,
earlier, but I
and
wanna
the
make sure
real
it's-
data. Yeah.
I want to make sure you understand that. I also felt that the chair of the TAC would be EDC, specifically because this is an EDC grant, so that responsibility comes.
Absolutely.
Congratulations.
Oh, by the way. Oh, by the way.
Okay, add that to the list.
Yeah, like there's a cost
And
benefit.
Ballarat.
There's a cost benefit. I don't know, but Dale, you should get from Dale the deliverables. And for instance, there's a cost benefit analysis. And you know, again, Dale's going to have to coordinate that, but somebody's got to actually hire or make sure, you know, that gets done with SLR. So I would think that that could be a big part of your running the TAC.
What was the consideration at the time when we applied for the grant as to how compliance was gonna be?
You write it in. It was in the grant.
But what was the plan at the time when we applied in terms of who was going to oversee this? I mean, is it the type of thing that
The
is?
staff,
In large part, yeah.
the staff here. It's
The
always,
staff.
any, that's with every grant we have,
Okay.
unless There are some grants that we receive, particularly like the larger grants for the buildings that we put where we could, if we needed to or felt we wanted to, include project management. Not every grant, but we can do something along those lines as well. But in this particular instance, these grants were very specifically for planning, and the requirements are laid out when you get the grant, and it's up to the staff to take care of it.
Mhm.
And I think Tony will tell you that staff is somewhat limited in terms of what
Yeah.
we can do, so that's why we felt it was important. We had some dollars, and it was really important because we don't want to lose track of any of these, and we want to make sure that we're, and most importantly, it's just that we need to keep a high-level view as to everything that's going on, both from a perspective of what's going on and from a perspective of what we want to continue to plan for. You know, for example, the center building or the police department, and there's a lot more that needs to be done. The demolition of the clubhouse on the property,
Yeah.
absolutely something that needs to be done. We need to put it in the budget. It would be wonderful if we find out that somebody wants to do something up there that they're gonna take it down, but it's gotta be done.
And by the way, just as an anecdote about Dale, great resource. I was up, he was actually on the panel for the entire Brownfield area-wide revitalization. He was next to the director of that and sitting with, and he did a wonderful job. So I think we have a wonderful resource in Dale because he's really plugged in. So I think he can, that's a great. We're very fortunate, I think, and can move to the next stage.
So just stay with this a little bit further. So we're gonna create a group or an individual who's going to be overseeing all these grants. Or going to be-
Assist with, Steve.
assist with. How does that work? Who's the person on the staff that is gonna have all that information so that it can be?
Generally speaking, Tony and I drive all of that with the with resources from Tony, Karen, and Allison. That's the staff. We have 2 people in finance as well, but the staff is us.
Right,
So, yes, Tony and I drive that.
right. That sounds like a lot.
He needs dollars.
I can tell you, when I came in, I asked and tried to apply for whatever grant we can get that will help us fund some of the things we needed to get done. We were very fortunate to get it.
Sure.
Tony was very, very pleasant about letting me know that. Just be careful because there's a lot to do with the grants.
Right.
And I've learned very quickly that he was being very pleasant and nice as he always is. And it's like we needed it. It helped us to
Yeah.
get some things going. So it's a great, but we're under the gun as a result of it. We're busy. We're busy. It's not a part-time job.
Recognizing, yep, being someone who deals with regulators, understanding the importance of it. How does someone from the volunteer service
Mhm.
fit into what you and Tony have going on?
I'll give you a good example on the CUPOP. For example, Nicole Donzello and her team, for example, will have brought forth some plans and some opportunities and some things from a public land use standpoint. And there's people on there that identify and understand and have an expertise with or a desire to find grants. And on a volunteer basis, they'll do that. Administratively, they'll go out, see what's available so that we apply. But when we applied for a grant for composting at our transfer station. SCROG is a tremendous resource in terms of helping us generally it's more applying for it, but they can also help us and assist us, not necessarily with resources. To a certain extent, they were able to, for example, give us a UConn fellow for a month or 2 who we utilized and took advantage of, who did a tremendous job in terms of identifying, using the GIS maps and other resources to identify vacant properties in the town. All the vacant properties and who owns them. So like now I have a means by which if there's a vacant property that we feel is like, geez, I wonder is there an opportunity to do something in there, wherever it is, who owns it? If there's somebody to reach out to,
Yeah.
things of that nature. So we're using, SCROG has been a great resource. It's absolutely wonderful. And we use commission members and other people who bring expertise. There's a gentleman who knows a lot about IT who we brought in and gave us some information in regards to what we could do and provided information that was required so that if we apply for a grant, it would, we weren't doing it. And the board sometimes helps as well. Steve Munna, for example, is very much involved with the compost grant. He did a lot of the writing. He did a lot. Kate Rosen and Steve are doing grant writing they did a lot of the grant writing for transportation grant that was for bikes and walks, so that in the spring we're going to be able to do a kind of a bike instruction type of a program in town. And so we secured, I think, $5,000 to buy helmets and things of that nature that we could do. So I use all this as an example as to what we can do. So we're not limited in terms of having to use the staff, but we're the ones who have to get it done.
Sure, I understand.
Steve, were you asking if the volunteer squad of the town can help in the execution?
I thought he was asking, can I do more? That's what I
That's actually where I was headed, and I was about to say, I think we should take this offline and see if there's some things that I can do to.
I'd welcome it, Steve.
Provide,
We'd welcome it, and
assistance.
we do try to do that, so, thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
Steve, anything from 2030? Any updates there?
Nothing for 2030, except from when Chris was with us at the last meeting.
Are they still meeting 2030? I haven't seen any meeting notices.
Under business retention, new businesses, we have a grand opening with,
Can I just say
yeah.
something about 2030?
Yeah.
Excuse me, just because I'm involved
Excuse
in
me.
helping plan a meeting on that. They're trying to do a meeting on the normal date, which is, I don't have the calendar in front of me, it's third Tuesday, but usually it's at 6 p.m. They're going to try to do a WebEx meeting at 4 p.m. So I know that both of you are involved. Just trying to get confirmation from the task force that they'll have, the members there can attend. So I'll notify you once that's confirmed.
That'd be terrific.
Because there's a conflict with a finance meeting that night, so not Susan Jacobs' finance budget meeting, so she can't make that. So we're just trying to coordinate that because there's an SLR update that evening.
I'm sorry, Susan Jacobs can't make
The 6 p.m. meeting
for who?
for the 2030 task force.
Right,
because
but
she's-
she can't be, she's
Yeah,
gonna
that's
have,
that's
she's
another
gonna have to
thing.
get off 2030, right?
Any member of the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance who are currently taking part in a commission as a member of the committee, ad hoc committee, commission, whatever, the charter is pretty specific in that they can't. So they can remain involved with those commissions on a liaison basis,
Okay.
and which will undoubtedly happen. It hasn't been officially, we haven't forced people to not attend meetings as yet, but that's coming. So rather quickly, but because this has been a practice that's gone on for so long and it's so ingrained in terms of what we do, we've got people on building committees who are integral to projects that are happening right, as we speak. To just pull them out immediately would be detrimental to the town from the perspective of these projects. But it's something that we need to make happen. So you'll be hearing some of that, and that's, so
Okay.
thank you, Scott, so.
But also
I'm
Tony
just-
Genovese
yeah.
is at the finance meeting as well, and he's an integral staff person at the 2030 task force, so that's why we're trying to move it to a 4 p.m. WebEx meeting, so I know you're both involved, I'll make sure that I copy you, and Scott, you as well, I know you've been involved in the past.
Okay, thank you. For new business, or in business retention, on the 13th of February, they're doing a grand opening at Crunch CT. That's the bakery that opened up the former Amity Meat, and I know that Rick's gonna go, and I'm gonna go to that.
What time is that?
4 p.m.
Is it 4, prior to our meeting?
It is on your calendar, Nick.
On the 13th, February, no, thank you.
You're welcome.
I was looking at the,
I have not been over there yet, but I've seen a couple different things online of all positive coming out of it. So I hope to drop in there and pick something up even over the weekend.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the time?
It's at 4 o'clock, correct?
4 o'clock.
Yes, 4 p.m.
That's on the 13th.
I'm not gonna attempt to say the name of the pastry
Yeah.
that they provide. It's very good.
It was
It's
tasty.
very good. I did go there and.
Doesn't matter what
and
it's
met
called.
the people
Yeah.
there, and it is very good. And it's, and they're coming along. I think there's more that's, you know, they're putting more out there, so,
Great.
it's worth a visit.
Excellent.
Excellent. Okay. Sherry, anything for pop-up?
So I think Scott gave you all an update for last meeting, because I was not here. Where we are for next steps, I have a meeting next Tuesday with the Up Next pop-up folks.
Okay.
And we're gonna talk through understanding our budget timing and approval. Is May, I think, right,
Yes.
I believe. And if we wanna do something for our September and or December timeframe, how does it actually all work? Right, so we're gonna sit, I'm gonna sit down with them next Tuesday and talk through this timing and understand how that'll work with our budget process and our approval. Once I have an update, I'll email you guys, so we don't wait another whole month for an update. But we're gonna move forward and still continue, and then if we can figure out the budget process, we'll then get a formal proposal from them, and then start having the conversations with Tony and whoever grants or whatever, and have that conversation.
Great. Moving on to public comment. Any public comment? Any public comment? Seeing none. Our next meeting scheduled for the 13th of February, 6 o'clock.
Move to adjourn.
Second? Thanks.
All in favor?
Thanks, Cliff.